Alright, time to get controversial. And honestly, I probably should have reviewed this when the movie first came out instead of now, but hey, still works. But let's go. Hello, this is Daniel Mart back again. I'm an actor and filmmaker based out of South Florida, and for this video, we're going to be doing a review of Final Destination Bloodlines. So yeah, this is the newest addition to the Final Destination series. It's the first one we've had in about, 10 years, maybe more. And yeah, what did I think of it? So as you guys know, this movie came out earlier this year. As many of you know, it was a very big hit, to the point that right now we are actually getting news about Final Destination 7 being greenlit and what's going to happen with that, with the series. I know that the directors of this movie are not coming back for Final Destination 7. I think they've already cast, I guess would be the best word, or they've already cast a director for Final Destination 7. Yeah, what about this movie? What are my thoughts on this movie, the newest edition? The one that many people are claiming is the best in the franchise. Like, that's how big this movie became. Like, that's how much people really loved this movie. To the point that it's considered the best of the franchise, if not one of the best of the franchises. So right off the gates, I'm just gonna start with the fact that this in a lot of ways is the best of the franchises. I mean, the characters I think are some of the best developed characters across the franchise. I do think it has some of the best acting across the franchise. And here's the thing. This series in general is not known for its acting. I mean, just look at the Final Destination, Final Destination 4. We all know how the acting in that movie, just across the board, just sucked in that movie. Not gonna lie, there's actors across the entire franchise that are pretty wooden. I would say the kid in Final Destination 2 is pretty wooden. I'd even say that Officer Burke, his actor's pretty wooden in a lot of scenes in that movie. I would say Carter Horton, his, before he goes all cuckoo crazy, his performance is pretty wooden in first Final Destination movie. Final Destination 5 also kind of has that problem where some of the characters are kind of wooden acting wise. So that's the thing. Across the franchise, we do have some pretty wooden performances, but you don't really care for those performances per se because you're just waiting for them to be killed. Something that goes in tandem with the wooden performances is the wooden writing, just the bad writing. Again, Final Destination 4 definitely falls victim to this curse, but I'll be honest, there's parts of Final Destination 5, which is another one that's considered the best of the series, that kind of falls to this kind of weird writing sometimes. Final Destination 3 for sure falls into that as well. Not as bad as Final Destination 4. Again, that's the thing. This movie just had to pass the bar of, is it better than Final Destination 4? And thank God it passed that bar. So yeah, so overall, that's been the issue for the series in general. Just weird, wooden acting and just badly written sometimes. But to a certain degree, you don't care about that because you're just waiting for the kills. And it still has a very interesting concept, a very interesting story. For me, personally, for the longest time, it was between Final Destination 2 and 5. They were my favorites. When I did a rewatch of the series, Final Destination 5 actually went drastically down. I'm not gonna lie. And I did a video ranking all the Final Destination movies so you could see where that places. At the end screen, when, we see the recommended videos, you could check out my thoughts on that movie as well. There are aspects of the franchise in general that are, again, bad. Specifically the acting and the writing. So how does this movie hold up in that regard? It holds up. It definitely holds up. Again, this is some of the best acting and some of the best writing that the series has had. So in that respect, it is top of the line. It is some of the best in the series. In that respect, of course, the opening disaster is just marvelous. It's definitely the biggest one. I would say it's definitely the biggest one. And I think maybe the plane crash, the plane explosion in the first Final Destination kind of beats it in terms of grandiosity, perhaps. And that's a very big perhaps. But yeah, this is definitely the biggest one in the disaster-wise in the franchise. I guess the bridge collapse cost to kind of give it a run for its money, I guess. But yeah, this is definitely one of the biggest ones. It's definitely one of the more intense ones. It's just a fantastic disaster across the board. And as I was just mentioning right beforehand, the performances and the writing throughout this movie is just amazing for the most part. However, I will say I'm gonna be honest with you. Stephanie was kind of a bland character. Ironically, the main character is the one who was probably the most useless in this regard, and I kind of feel bad for her. I forget what the actress's name is, and I think this is one of her first roles. But it's one of those things that it's not that she did a bad job, and it's not that she was poorly written necessarily, but it's one of those things where she just wasn't given much to do. It really just feels like she was just used as the exposition voice. In a lot of sense, she is supposed to be the most grounded character in this whole movie, given the circumstances, but at the same time, it's there's some moments where they need her to be grounded. And there's some moments where they need her to kind of go off the walls, especially when she's explaining the Final Destination curse, so to speak, to the family, and she kind of freaks out. But like, I don't know, I felt like her actress wasn't as strong as everybody else, as Richard Harmon, who portrayed Eric, of course, or like some of these other characters, like even compared to, like, let's say her aunt, like, bro, like, your aunt is bringing a lot more to this than you are. Like, you know, like, your dad is actually Jerry Fembury. Jerry Fembury? You know, is this why he always wanted to play catch? Like, I remember a lot more of the other characters and their performances and their moments than I do of her, if I'm being honest with you. And like the few stuff I remember of her, it's like, I didn't feel that much. So I kind of do feel bad for her as an actress and what she was given, because it feels like she kind of got screwed in a way. I definitely don't think she's the best protagonist we've had in the series. Pretty sure that's still Devon Sawa. I'm pretty sure in the first movie. I mean, Kimberly Corman was a pretty good protagonist as well. So then Wendy's pretty good too. Final Destination 4, no, and then honestly 5, Final Destination 5. My opinion on Final Destination 5 kind of went down when I rewatched these movies a few months ago. So, and that's a discussion for another topic, which, again, end screen videos, check them out. Yeah, I mean, again, aside from that, her, Stephanie, as a character and how she was written, everything else was really great in that regard, if I'm being honest with you. I loved everybody else's performance. And of course, speaking about performances and speaking about the writing, we can't deny the fact of the whole Tony Todd of it all. You know, he shows up in this movie, and that is one of the most bittersweet goodbyes I've seen in a movie probably ever. Like, I can't think of another bittersweet goodbye to such a degree. Like, the only other thing I could kind of think of is Iron Man when he dies. But, like, we know that in real life, RDJ is still alive, if that makes sense. Whereas this, like, we know Tony Todd, this was his last performance ever, you know? So it's like, it's such a bittersweet, and like, there's stories behind the scenes stories about how he asked the producers and the director, like, hey, by the way, I have I believe it was stomach cancer, and he's like, hey, can I just improvise the last line as a final goodbye to both the series, the franchise, and the fans, and not just fans of the franchise, but like fans of me, of Tony Todd, and the art I put out there. And that was not gonna, I very much choke up. Like, that's one of those scenes that I just choke up every single time. It's so sad, bittersweet, because, you know, you're saying goodbye to a legend. Like, you cannot deny the fact that you are saying goodbye to a legend in such a legendary way. Like, even outside of Final Destination, he's got Candyman, you know, Candyman, you know, don't say his name 5 times. You know, you have stuff like Candyman, like, which probably is the thing he's also best known for outside of Final Destination. But he's been in so many other movies. It's heartbreaking. Not gonna lie, it's bittersweet, it's heartbreaking, and if he needed to go out in any way, shape, or form, that's the way to go out. You know, I'm happy we don't get to see him die. I think that would be kind of morose. I don't think they should mention his death ever. It's one of those things, like, we know he died. In universe, we know he died, but we don't need to know the details of that. Like, let's be honest, we don't need to know the details of that at all. So, I mean, just touching upon the whole Tony Todd of all, it's just great. And, of course, he mentions Kimberly Corman. Like, that was such, like, when he mentioned Kimberly Corman, I basically, like, just squealed with excitement. Not gonna lie. I just squealed with excitement because, like, oh my gosh, Kimberly Corman, yes! Yeah, that was basically my reaction. So, oh my gosh. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like, that scene alone is just amazing. Speaking of other amazing scenes, the deaths. I mean, let's get the obvious one out of the way. Just Eric in the MRI room. Like, holy crap. That is a death for the ages. Like, that may possibly be the reward. Like, the Golden Chainsaw, for example, if you guys watched Dead Meat. That's definitely the Golden Chainsaw for, like, the entire franchise. Like, Jesus Christ. Like him being bent over into the MRI machine, the pipes going through him, through his torso, basically replicating the Final Destination 5 poster. Like, oh my god. Like, that is, you know, him, like, the metal from his earrings and his nipple earrings, and, you know, his Prince Edward down there, like, being pulled into, like, Jesus Christ, that's, oh my gosh. You know, there's a lot of theories and conspiracy theories, so to speak, in regards to the movie as to why was Eric targeted, or when was he targeted, or why was he put on death's list. That could be a video in and of itself. Regardless of when or why he was put on death's list, you know, like, the point is, he went out with a bang. Like, he went out, like, that is one of those capital deaths. Like, I can't, like, we've had some great deaths across the series. For me, my personal favorite, it's still going to be Candace from Final Destination 5, because that's the only one that I have to look away from. This is probably close second. Like, if we're talking about the entire franchise, for me, this is, like, close second. The only reason that I have Candace higher is because that's when that makes me physically want to look away. Like, because of that reaction, like, that I put it higher than that. But, like, this is definitely a close second. Like, this is up there with also Terry Cheney's death, honestly. Like, this is definitely one of the best deaths across the franchise. And then follows it up with Bobby just getting a spring ran to his head. Like, not even, like, what, 30 seconds later, which is kind of just comedic gold across the board in that regard. I mean, of course, you have the sister. She gets crushed by the garbage compactor. Like, that's amazing. It's weird. I feel like the side family, if I'm being completely honest with you, and I know I mentioned Stephanie in this, but this could also be extended to Charlie and Darlene, the mother. But it feels like the side family, like the cousins, had a lot more energy than the main family. That being said, I still liked Charlie and Darlene as characters. I still think they were given more to do than Stephanie, if I'm being honest with you. But like, it's one of those things where the side family definitely had, like, they just went wild. Like, there's a reason why they're the standouts. You know, no offense to Darlene or Charlie, they're actors, but like, the reason why not many people remember you. And I'm not gonna lie, also Darlene kind of got one of the most throwaway deaths ever in Final Destination. If I'm being honest with you, like, that was such a throwaway death in my opinion. Like, it kind of just happens to be like, oh, okay, she's dead. Cool, next. Like, that's literally how I felt about her death. Like, that's the one death I feel is kind of lackluster, because even Iris with the pipe, the windpipe, the wind pipe, whatever that thing's called, going right through her mouth, like, you know, with the her jaw just coming unhinged. Like, that was pretty cool. That was unhinged, so to speak. Yeah, I do feel like Darlene kind of got the most throwaway death. And honestly, I know I just complimented the writing, but there are two aspects of the writing that I really didn't like, if I'm being completely honest with you. One, it's the very ending. And look, all Final Destination movies come with a stinger death, with a death or two or three, right at the very end of the movie. To a certain degree, I should have expected that. I'm not gonna lie, I should have expected that, but for whatever reason, I didn't expect it. Whatever. But if I'm being honest with you, I wasn't the biggest fan of the stinger deaths. I don't know if it's just me, but the whole sequence felt way too CGI'd for me. It felt way too CGI'd for me. Like, the CGI throughout the rest of the movie was honestly really good. But the stinger death here, it just seemed very CGI. Like, almost like if the CGI wasn't finished. I guess, thank God, it's literally just like the last 30 seconds of the movie. But I'm not gonna lie, even then, that really took me out of the movie. And on top of that, and this is one of those things, like, I know the character's a doctor, but you weren't there. So how exactly would you know this kind of situation? But in this movie, it's firmly established, like, it was technically confirmed in Final Destination 2, but in this movie, it was firmly established that if you die, if you flatline, and then are brought back to life, then, you know, death's list is obliterated. That's why Kimberly and Tom from Final Destination 2, that's why they lived until current day. So I think that's part of the reason why I didn't think about the stinger deaths. Like, oh crap, Stephanie actually did die, she flatlined, and she got revived. So great. And then this doctor comes out of nowhere and it's like, no, you actually didn't flatline. Because he was able to revive you, you didn't flatline. I'm like, okay, cool. Didn't you just say revive? Or like I feel like there's, I mean, I know the character is introduced as a doctor, but it's one of those things like, you weren't there. That seemed like such a theory thing, if I'm being honest with you. And it's one of those things like, for the audience, it's like, oh, so she didn't die. So crap, she's about to die right now. Boom, you know? But like, I just felt like that sequence was a bit weird, just because like, hey, this character was not there at all. How the hell would he know? You know, it just seemed very weirdly handled how that was. And then the last thing, and this is something that I didn't really notice at the time, it's something that I thought about way after I saw the movie. It's two things with Death's design in this movie. So as you know, we have the map. We have the map where it shows the timeline of everybody who's killed, and all their children, their offspring, and their family members, and all that stuff, right? First off, and I'll be honest with you, this is completely the filmmaker in me, which is why this kind of hurts me a little bit. But like, this is one of those things, I noticed this, and for me, because I noticed this, and because I'm a filmmaker myself, it kind of does degrade from the movie in a sense. Like, it does like oh, I kind of wish you guys would have paid way more attention to those details, because now it kind of takes me out of the movie when I really think about it. But it's two things in regards to that map, that timeline. One, those deaths are completely out of order. So the biggest example is the little kid. He dies presumably third to last, because it's the kid. He gets squished by the piano, and then at the end it's Iris, and then at the very end it's Tony Todd, right? Like, that should be logically the order. Of course, if they have offspring, which these characters did have, the kid and Iris, it is confirmed that they had offspring. Iris, obviously, but yes, the kid also did eventually have a daughter. It's confirmed that, you know, the kid, his daughter, cool. Move on to Iris, her family, cool, and then Tony Todd at the end, cool. But if you look at this timeline, they have the kid, which his name is like Alfred, not Alfred Molina, but something like that. It's like something close to Alfred Molina. And they have him dying like in the 70s. It's like, isn't he supposed to be like the third to last? Shouldn't he have died like 2 weeks ago or something like that, or like 2 years ago? Why is he dying like in the 70s? Like, it made no sense. And again, that's one of those things, like, me as a filmmaker, I noticed this, and like, I wish you would have paid more attention to the details. And on top of that, like, he dies in the 70s, so like the disaster happened in like what, 50s, I think? So he would, and he was like, what, 8? So logically, he would have been like maybe late 20s, early 30s. But even then, in the picture that you see of him, he's like in his mid 50s. From a production standpoint, I just find that to be very sloppy. And it's one of those things, you see a lot of stuff that's just like all over the place. Like you have one guy who supposedly was a survivor of the disaster. He dies like in 2010, and he appears to be like 30 years old. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Again, this is me as a filmmaker. This is stuff that I notice. And because I'm a filmmaker, I notice these things a little bit more in particular with a lot more detail. And when stuff like that, when like these production errors occur, in some sense of the word, yes, it can be forgiven. But in this case, where the rules are so set in stone, I feel like this is one of those situations where they should have honestly paid a lot more attention to the details. If I'm being completely honest with you. Because it is one of those things that kind of takes me out of the movie completely. I'm not gonna lie to you. It is one of those things that just does take me out of the movie completely. And another thing that kind of goes along with this, and I know death is good. I know death is good. Like, he knows how to come after people. But like, I'm just thinking, you have over 200 people to go after. You have the initial 200 people who survived the disaster, plus like all of their offspring. And I'm pretty sure offsprings didn't just happen like day 2. You know, I'm pretty sure offsprings had to happen within like 2, maybe 3 years afterwards. So maybe the first like 20 to 30 people you were able to catch, and that's it. But like after a while, yes, you are catching their offspring. But my question here is, do you really have a 100% kill rate in this list? Because I'm surprised. You have, again, minimum 200 people, maybe as much as, let's say, 500. Let's say between 200 and 500 people is how many people you need to kill. Is it really that believable that you have a 100% kill rate? When we've seen lists significantly shorter than this, where it's like 10 people or less, and sometimes you miss somebody, or, you know, they manage to avoid death. So that logic too, like, I'm not gonna lie, kind of throws me off. It kind of throws me off. And so my question is here, which I'm not sure the filmmakers would ever answer. If they have answered that, maybe I missed it. But like, if someone on the family branch skips death because they either killed somebody or they avoided death because they were saved or whatever have you, are they then put on the end? Are they put on the end of the family list, like the family timeline list, or are they put on the very end of the list after Tony Todd? You know what I mean? So like, let's say Bobby somehow survived. Does that mean he then either A, has to die after, well, no, Bobby's the last one, I guess. So let's say Julie survived. So then, if Julie survived, does she have to wait after Bobby dies? Because then that's one list. So is she killed after Bobby? B, is she killed after Charlie? Because Charlie's the last one in that family branch. Or C, does she have to wait until Tony Todd is killed off? I'm not gonna lie. I know death is good, really good, but like, we've seen him. I feel like in every single movie, there's at least one person who manages to skip death. Minimum, in every single movie, there's one person who manages to skip death. I mean, you have Alex and Claire in the first 2 movies, essentially. Eugene technically survives an attempt, if I'm not mistaken. Nora survives an attempt in the second movie as well. In the third movie, Ian survives. In the fourth movie, Janet survives. In the fifth movie, Peter survives for some time, you know. So like, we do have, in every other movie, we have somebody who, and even then, and that's the other thing, which goes into a bit more stuff of like, how do death's rules apply? Because Nora, she technically, in the second movie, Nora technically skipped death, but then she still dies immediately right afterwards. And then the thing I found out after I saw Final Destination 6, this one, is the fact that in order for you to officially skip death, if you're saved, you have to be saved by somebody else on the list. So that's why Nora still dies in her proper place instead of being moved to the back of the line, because when she was saved by that construction worker before she was crushed by the window pane that killed her son. If she was saved by, let's say, Eugene, who was there, or Thomas, because Thomas was there, then she would be skipped and put at the end of the line. But because she was saved by a random pedestrian, she's not put at the end of the line. She's just skipped for that very moment. So that's an example. So my thing is like, are you telling me that every single time, like, you have a 100% kill rate? When, again, we've seen this with, like, 10 people or less, and you don't have a 100% kill rate. So, for me, I'm not gonna lie, that's also just very much unbelievable. That raised some more questions, which I'm not gonna lie, those questions are good to have. At the same time, it's like, it kind of makes the story just a touch bit too unbelievable. For me, at least. Not gonna lie, because of those two things, I'm not gonna lie, it kind of does drag down the movie for me. And this is something that I explained in that video where I ranked all the Final Destination movies. This is something that I explained during this video. Now, that's not to say that this isn't a great movie. Do not get this wrong at all. I still think this is a great movie. But if I am being honest with myself and with you guys, I do not think it's the best in the franchise. Even if these little issues hadn't popped up, I still wouldn't put it as the best in the franchise. For me, I still think Final Destination 2 is the best in the franchise. And I'm not gonna lie, when I did my rewatch, Final Destination 1 actually really increased in my ranking. Like I said, it's really this rewatch that actually Final Destination 5 kind of really dragged down. In my opinion, like, I don't know what happened this rewatch of Final Destination 5, but I just significantly enjoyed Final Destination 5 less. I feel like, I know one of my issues right now with Final Destination 5 is the fact that the ending just feels a little bit rushed. And I feel like there could have been more stuff added to the ending that could have explained some stuff. That's for a whole different discussion, which again, watch the video in the end screen. But yeah, that's basically it. But overall, I still think this was a really great movie. Do not get that wrong. Do not get that wrong at all. I still think this is a great movie. Is it the best in the franchise? That being said, I do not think so. I know that's basically an unpopular opinion, but I do not think it's the best in the franchise. I do think it has one of the best deaths in the franchise. It definitely has the best disaster in the entire franchise, I'll give you that. It has some of the best characters in the franchise. I mean, immediately Eric, to be honest with you, and honestly Julie and Bobby, again, that whole, the second family is probably some of the best characters in the franchise. But I will say, the production issues aside, it does have some of the weakest elements in the franchise. Like, I'm sorry, Stephanie is just a very weak character, in my opinion. I feel like her directing, her writing is kind of a little bit all over the place. I think it's kind of on the same level as Sam from Final Destination 5, which is a character that despite how much I loved Final Destination 5, Sam was always kind of a weak part in that story, even for me. Oh, it definitely has one of the best moments. It definitely has one of the best moments, one of the best scenes in the franchise with Tony Todd saying goodbye. That for damn sure. If I'm being honest with you, it is not the best in the franchise. I would still say Final Destination 2 is over it. Final Destination 1 is probably over it. And then, I guess on any given Sunday, however I feel, Final Destination 5 or 6 go like teeter-totter between each other. If I'm being honest with you, it's not the best in the franchise, but it's definitely one of the best. At least top 3, maybe 4. This really just had to be better than Final Destination 4. That's really it. It really just had to be better than the Final Destination. Better than Final Destination 4. If it did that, at least good, even if it was on the same level as Final Destination 3, so to speak, then you're good. Again, you just need to be better than Final Destination 4. So yeah, overall, like I said, that's how I feel about it. And I know it's kind of a hot take, a bit of a controversial take, but that's my honest opinion. Comment all your thoughts down below. Let me know. Tell me if I'm wrong. You guys probably will. So yeah, just tell me how wrong I am down below. Let me know. And yeah, that's basically it for now. This is Daniel Mart, signing off.